All right, so our very first presentation today is from Vyrus. He has remoted in for us quite, well, we're very lucky to have him from California today. So his presentation is Pages from a Swordmaker's Notebook, Part 3. So please give him a warm ShmooCon welcome.
Sorry for not being there in person. It sucks. But, you know, I still have a house. Yay. It's like not burned to the ground. And, you know, it's really great that the Shmoo folks were willing and able to accommodate my ridiculousness of, like, surprise not being there. So I had a toast that I was going to make to at the end of the con, which I obviously can't do there now. Sorry, but I'm going to read it anyway because I'm sentimental like that. So bear with me. I'll try to go through it fast. So as a 19-year-old in 2024 during DEF CON 12, I saw one of the coolest hacker presentations I'd ever seen at a HackerCon, a 4-part presentation by a hacker crew known as the Shmoo Group. After blowing my mind with a wireless handheld so strong to set off police radar and a one-of-a-kind rainbow table specifically calibrated for wireless use, the group announced that they had individually become a group of people settling down with spouses and young children and would subsequently be generally withdrawing from the conference-based hacker scene. In consolidation, the presenters announced that instead of traveling the globe to participate in hacker gatherings extraordinaire, they would be instead launching their own conference the following year, where their family lives had solidified, thus the era of ShmooCon began. Despite wanting desperately to attend the inaugural event, it wasn't until ShmooCon 3 that 22-year-old me and a fellow 949 hacker compatriot by the name of CP amassed the resources to don the necessary plane tickets and hotel stay. Sadly, even with newly minted big boy bank accounts, we remained lacking a critical ingredient of attendance, namely a ticket. By chance, the 949 clan had recently acquired a legacy departure control system-based printer, and by equal chance, Johnny Long, by that time co-author and hacker accomplice of CP, happened to be in attendance. That ShmooCon, CP and I flew to the wrong airport in DC, wrestled directions to the conference from free airport Wi-Fi via an FNet IRC channel, and begged our way into the conference with only a ShmooCon Air boarding pass and a prayer. An act that subsequently started Barcode Shmarkup, fun fact. 25 years later, I can mark many of the milestones by which ShmooCon was closest. I can mark many of my life milestones which ShmooCon was closest to the event. 949 threw its first party at ShmooCon. The first conference I ever brought my oldest child to, Shmoo. I kissed my wife for the very first time on the ShmooCon dance party floor. And my very first physically inclusive full-service consulting job was offered to me at the end of a ShmooCon. Shmoo is forever a part of my history. It shaped many of the milestones that made me into who I am today. I'm sorry to see it go, but I'll be happy to see it remembered so very well for years and years to come. The king is dead. Long live its firewall. All right, so today we're going to talk about malware that I wrote a while ago, like a few years ago, and then I found out bad guys were using it. So I messed with them, and it's basically just a trail of hilarity and carnage, and hopefully you all get entertained. So once upon a time, I wrote a Mimikatz backer. This is the part where if I was there, I was going to say how many people know what Mimikatz is, and if a bunch of people raise their hands, I was going to be like, okay, I'm not going to explain that, but I can't do that, so you get to listen to me explain it anyway. Mimikatz is a utility used by, we'll call it ethical, whatever, white hat, I don't know, people that do offensive security stuff, to do many things, but the big thing that it's famous for is it's real good at attaching to a process inside Windows called the LSASS process, where credentials lie in plain text, unless the correct associate buttons are hit in Microsoft land. And it's very effective at this task, and actual threat actors use it as well. And so when I was deep in my consulting days, I wrote a packer for it, and I called it Go Mimikatz, because funny enough, it's written in Go. Pretty straightforward. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So I wrote this Mimikatz backer, and for a time it was good. And then I got a blue team job, and I had access to a big boy VirusTotal account. and I noticed that it was on VirusTotal. And not only was it on VirusTotal, but it was on VirusTotal scheduled. Like, it was a very regular update to VirusTotal, which told me that some blue teamer somewhere had observed some bad guys somewhere using it and had decided that fingerprinting it at scale was a thing that was going to help their threat profile. I ended up figuring out who the blue teamer was. It actually took me a while, and I genuinely can't remember because that's not an important part of the story. It was someone based out of Mexico, and they had this like process where they used to find like malware on like mostly GitHub and GitLab and like open source stuff that was like dual use technology, like things that were designed by like white hat operators that was also being used. Oh no, I've nudged my phone and now I dropped the punchline of the joke too early. Anyway, you know, stuff that's dual use, that's used by both white and black hats, so to speak. And they script it and they add a bunch of tags so that blue teamers will find it, and they upload it to VirusTotal on a regular basis. So I figured out that was happening. I was like, who is using my stuff? So I backdoored source code and I left it there for a year and let people do their thing. And what we're going to talk about is how I backdoored it and how the packer worked and what I got from the spoils. Okay, so the way Go Mimikatz works is it exists in 3 pieces. There's the initial packer, which goes out to the internet and downloads a binary copy of Mimikatz and splits it into 2 binary pads. I'm going to assume that most folks in the audience are familiar with what a one-time pad is. Basically, you just have 2 blocks of bytes that are of equal size, and you XOR them together, and you get the original content out. Sans a bunch of cryptographic explanation. So the first, the slide is showing basically the equivalent of the makefile kind of sort of. It's not literally a makefile, but I use it like a makefile. That calls the 3 pieces. So first you have your packer. The packer goes out and downloads Mimikatz, splits it into 2 pads, writes those pads to disk. It calls the pads stub. That's what the -o stub is for. The second step is that it then builds the stub. So it builds a binary, right? Which is a program that has the 2 pads in it, and it XORs the 2 pads together to get the original binary file, and then loads the file from memory using an artificial loader called Donut, which is pretty popular now. Buddy of mine, Ben Kurtz, and some other folks over at SimulCrash, we all kind of work together, but it's mostly Ben's project. Built it a while ago. It's an in-memory user land loader. That just means it's a program that is capable of running other programs from memory without writing them to disk first. And then there's the fixer, and we'll talk about what the fixer does later. Normally this was going to be like an interactive. I was going to see how many people actually know the Go system internals of why the fixer is necessary, but I can't do that because I'm not there. So instead I'll just bury the lead and you'll have to not leave my talk. This remote is killing me. Okay. All right, so this is the packer. Pretty straightforward, right? So you know, we have a URL. It goes out and downloads an explicit version off of GitHub, and based on whichever platform you're building the sample on, you know, it pulls out the appropriate binary from the zip file, unzips it in memory, and then shell codifies. It basically turns the executable, the binary, into shellcode. That's what this donut stuff is. And that's the loader I was talking about earlier. It basically takes a stub in assembly that is the loader and tacks it on the front of the executable such that you just call this arbitrary blob of bytes, and it knows how to find out where the exe is in memory relative to itself, and then artificially loads it and, you know, finds the entry point and calls go. That's what this donut stuff does. That's like the shell codification portion. So once we have our quote unquote shell code, we break it into 2 parts by generating a random byte for every byte of the original part. XOR it together, you get 2 pads, write the pads to disk. That's the pad I was talking about previously. All right. So this is the stub, and the stub is pretty simple. You have your first pad and your second pad, and you XOR them together, and you get the original. And now there's way fancier ways to do this in Go, because Go's come a long way since I wrote this back in like 2020, I think, when I wrote it originally, or maybe before that. I've been like 2018, 2019, I don't remember. And anyway, this is how you call an arbitrary position in memory in Go. Fun fact, and like this was supposed to be the interactive part that I can't make interactive, so I'll just bury the lead for a while and make Jeopardy noises. If you know anything about Go, looking at this code, it will compile, but it will not run. And I will wait 30 seconds for you to ponder why. I'm not gonna wait 30 seconds, I'm just gonna wait that long. But so this won't run. This is what Fixer's for. So the reason this won't run is because these two variables are data. And Go runtime has protections against trying to execute things from what are considered data segments. It'll get mad at you and say, that's not, that is protected memory, what are you doing? And it'll just segfault immediately. So you need Fixer. What Fixer does is set all the sections of the binary to executable. The reason this is really funny is because normally in any other native code programming language in the world, this would be a terrible thing to do to anything you want to use in a clandestine context, because this is like 1991 level, like, oh, this is obviously malware because all the sections are executable. But it turns out that the entropy of Go changes so much because the runtime changes so much that basically every malware or anti-malware vendor in the world has given up trying to profile it section by section. So this just like totally works. Like, you could just set like, you don't like I should have had to do this crafty and only change the sections that I need to be executable and maybe even move them around a little bit so that they exist inside a default section and then get rearranged upon instantiation. Nope, don't have to do any of that. Like, you can just set the whole thing to executable and it'll totally work. And this still works like years later, even with modern Go, which is hilarious. Anyway, all right, so I talked about how I noticed that I had an inclination that bad guys were using my stuff, and I wanted to find out who they were, or at least a little bit of information about them. So I backdoored the code. This is the backdoor. So the backdoor is, if you look at the original Fixer, let me go back. All right, we're just changing sections, right? That's all we're doing. We're just modifying the section to be what it is. If you look at the and I should note that when this was on BT, as soon as I noticed it, it went from like 0 out of 60 getting flagged to like 35 plus. It was like all of a sudden, like all the big kid blue teams like noticed it, and it was like significantly getting flagged from anti-malware vendors. So I say that to say I had an obvious social pretext to update the software and do things that made the static signature change, because it was in fact getting flagged by AV at that point, and so an update was needed. So this was the update that I posted, right? It just also had sauce in it. So if you notice, everything up to this line is pretty the same, right? Like, it just changes the sections. And then it adds all this other stuff to the bottom of the file. And that other stuff includes the current home directory and the current username of the individual compiling the, because all this runs at you run go generate, it runs those 3 steps, and this runs at compile time, right? This runs at build time, I shouldn't say compile time. It technically runs at build time, right? So, the user that is currently building the software, the name of the user if they're different than the username, all of the environment variables in the current environment where this is happening, a screenshot of every attached monitor at the time of compilation, the public IP address of the host as defined by myexternalip.com/raw, the current Go architecture, or the Go Arch, which is the architecture of the system that it's on, the OS, of the system that's on. These are Go constants that you can use to write things. Anyway, so it takes all this information, and then it 1 byte XORs it by a static key, and then shoves it into the binary. The shoving it into the binary part is arguably the most important part of this whole endeavor, because it's why I get to give this talk. Because if I would have had this, well, I should say lawyers tell me that. If I would have had this like reach out through the internet and take all this information stolen from someone's machine and deposit it someplace like on a Dropbox or using Twitter or email, or even written some kind of C2 that would make some kind of external connection. Even with things being open source, doing this like surreptitiously would have been legal, like gray, like that would have crossed a line and like, no, like you can't do that. But I didn't do that, right? The data just got wrapped into the sample itself. So if you didn't send me the sample or do something nefarious to the point where someone else put your sample on VirusTotal for others to download, I would not have any of this data. So by definition, everything I'm about to show you was willingly submitted to the internet. It's not my fault. No one can come after me. Like, this is all legal. Anyway, so that's why I get to give the talk. So yeah, this was my poorly worded excuse at the time for posting the update. I was like, okay, like, hey, I heard this is getting flagged by AV. Sorry about that. Here's an update. Like, party on, Garth. Let's do the thing. And I just left it there for a year and waited for people to use it and waited for waited for more samples to show up on BT, which they did. They did indeed. So a year later, I dragged the swamp of VirusTotal, and I decrypted all that data, and I made all the slides I'm about to show you. So Exhibit A. The user environment belongs to a username called ChrisBSD. Nothing super special about it, other than the fact that I can't remember where it is in here, but somewhere in the application directories of the user settings is a word called Bilkewit, which is in German it means cloudy. Oh, it's in the screenshot. Like down here, you can see like the weather is cloudy, which told me that it was German. And it turns out that if you take this exact username and you go to GitHub / that username, you get a German who conveniently like posted his picture as his avatar on GitHub and happens to work for Google and does a lot of like pen testy, exploitation, blockchain-y stuff. And so yeah, this is like a great textbook example of like how the backdoor works. Like, he built my software. This is, if I go back, like, well, is it gonna let me do that? Yeah, like this is, sorry, these images are kind of small. I tried to, originally I was gonna have them as separate slides and scale through them, but it's kind of easier to do in a like, one-on-one like physical context. It's kind of hard for me to do remotely. So when I do later on questions or slide releases, I'll blow these images up. Some of them are full screen, so some of those are cool, but anyway, I'm sorry in advance for the smallest of the images. They're full resolution, they just look real small to you. But yeah, here's a screenshot of what, you can see all the output messages, and like, this is what it was, building my stuff. And I took a screenshot, I sent it to me. It's kind of funny. All right. This one is really interesting because a few reasons. So first of all, the IP address that's down here, the public IP address of the operating system, supposedly is in a province in China called Chengdu. This is very interesting because it's not just in Chengdu. It's actually, according to Chinese backed like geo IP locators, a specific building in Chengdu that belonged in 2022, the day this screenshot was taken, to a company called iSoon. If any of you have read the news over the past few years, you would know that iSoon is it existed under some pretty intense scrutiny over being an IT shop that wasn't actually an IT shop. It was actually a bunch of military-backed threat actors who were just pulling smash and grabs on American and Indian and Southeast Asian targets. Also, the username on this machine is Scoop. This was super funny. So apparently, so Scoop is a reference to a CBBC or BCC, whatever, Canadian TV show with a dog in it named Hacker the Dog. And it turns out that like Hacker the Dog is like super popular randomly, like Chinese hacker room culture things. Super funny. The Go proxy, there's an environment variable in here. The Go proxy is set to the Chinese endpoint for Go. So again, more confirmation that it's in China. I wish I could scroll around a little bit easier without messing up the screen share, but in the screenshot, you can see that they have GitHub open, and they have an account open, which is 4T145, right? Is the account on GitHub. And then the repo that they have open is something called rehash, sorry. You can't see the hash on the other side of it because it's it's obscured by by the secondary window where they're building the software and it's having a connection problem. But just trust me, it's called rehash. It's still online, you can go find it. So the numbers are in reference to, like, this is super common in the way that like Chinese hackers do their thing, is they will often say words by saying numbers, because the way that when you say the numbers in Mandarin, the way that you say them makes words. And so you can say whole sentences or tiny phrases by just like typing Romanized characters. This is like a common way that like it's operators who are Chinese but who are interacting with a lot of like Western endpoints that aren't necessarily on the same like key standards will make names and stuff. Anyway, the reason this is interesting is because this person is looking at this repo and they're looking at this account. But how do I know that that's them as opposed to them just using, some software or having the window open in the background while they did this build, right? Like, why is this significant? Well, because it turns out if you go to this exact repo, the very last commit was on the day this was built. And you can see like the commit history in the back. So this is clearly the person, like that's your boy, like iSoon guy, there you go. I have it on good authority that this went somewhere. Like full disclosure, this is technically the second time I've given this talk. The first time I gave it was at a clandestine like Intel Exchange meeting that was blessed by certain parties. I'm not allowed to know how this may or may not have been used, but gremlins have told me that it was useful in stuff. So anyway, I feel a bit vindicated knowing that this information was accurate. But yeah, iSoon operator, that was fun. This one I assume is Russian from all the Cyrillic. I don't know, I can't read most of it. I've asked trusted friends to translate most of it and it all kind of came up benign. The user is like Dexty, D3XTE. I've Googled around for it a lot. I've looked for it on Russian search engines. I haven't seen it at all. It doesn't show up on Telegram, at least as of the last few years. So whoever it is either has really good OPSEC or I just suck at OSINT, very possible. But that's basically all I got. This one is also super funny because it is a Tencent employee on a Tencent laptop in like April-ish, like May-ish of 2022. And then like the IP is coming out of a Tencent office in Hong Kong, and the username, even the Romanized username, translates into the Mandarin, which they have as an environment variable stored in the subdirectory of their D drive where their Go thing is. Like, this is very, very, very clearly a Tencent employee on a day that, according to news outlets as of about 48 hours ago, was acting on behalf of the Chinese military, according to the United States government, because they have recently classified Tencent as a military organization, which is really funny, especially since it lists things like the domain server that Tencent is using right now, or at least they were using in 2022. I don't know if they're still using it. I don't know. I mean, Tencent does have American employees. Maybe they can confirm this for me. I have no idea. But yeah, this is like part two of my like personal hilarity. Is yeah, pretty sure this is like smoking gun of Tencent people on a smash and grab, using the stuff. You can even see like the other programs they have installed. They've got like full hacker man, right? Like got the RDP session and the virtual box and IDA. It's great. It's great. It's hilarious. Love to see it. Also a Chinese individual by the name of KOUAZ, which also corresponds to a GitHub user if you go look it up. And the IP address shows it being an ATT incorporated area. I think it's like Texas or East Coast somewhere. Anyway, it's also a Tencent building. Yeah, IP address coming out of Tencent, and there's a couple of other like gems in here where you can see like corporate. They're pretty far in, so I'm not going to scroll all the way back because it's kind of hard to scroll in my little code window here if I go all the way. I have to make the text small, and remotely there's no way I can interact with folks. But yeah, anyway, likely additional Tencent person, definitely operating on Tencent IP space, definitely Chinese localization language. You can see the little Mandarin there at the bottom, but I don't have as much information on this person as I do on the other one, who is literally on a corporate machine, which I love. Anyway, this one is in Japan. This is probably the most geographically diverse hit that I got because just going off the browser tabs, there's Russian, there's a Slavic language that isn't Russian. I haven't figured out what it is. My Serbian friends don't think it's Serbian. My Croatian friends don't think it's Croatian. So maybe it's like Slovenian or Bosnian. I'm not sure. But there's at least 2 Slavic languages going on in there, and one of them is Russian. There's also like some Mandarin, there's also like some Japanese, or there's some kanji, there's some Japanese, and then there's like a couple other languages in there. So it's not, like whoever this is either just like no holds barred doing research and like has no F's to give and doing, crazy research, or they're like a super crazy good like hacker man, whatever, hacker person, and they're like operating in multiple languages and like clearly flexing their Tor down here and doing the thing. Not sure. Anyway, kind of cool. Some of these tabs were some of the tabs that I couldn't figure out. That's some kind of interesting. Well, there's freebuff.com in there, which is kind of cool. Check it out. It's like a front end for some stuff. I never figured out what this CESYA thing is. It kind of looks like an official organization of types, but the only organizations that it seems to link to like aren't like, they don't seem plausible. So anyway, I think more research needed on what that means. And then, they got Tor on the browser on the front page, or Tor browser on the front page. All right. This one, is this fun one number 1? No, it's not. Okay. There's one coming later that is super hilarious because it's like the one kind of sort of Westerner. Anyway, this one, someone in Nashville, Tennessee, it's got Windows 10 admin local, which is kind of weird. Also, this is very clearly a gamer person because there's a ton of like CPU-Z and like NVIDIA tools and like a bunch of like overclock stuff. Like, yeah, whoever this is probably some kid in middle America doing awesome hacker things, which I encourage, but like read your source before you compile it. Also, don't send it to VT if you don't know what's in it. Let that be a lesson to you. All right. This one is also Chinese. The user is JLU. I suspect, based on a fair amount of downstream research, that this is actually a shared system or an account or shared account on a university system. So JLU is a common acronym used for Jilin University, which is like a big kid. It's like the Penn State of China, right? It's like the leading public research university for that receives funding from the federal government in China. Funny story, they're also in Shenyang, which is where iSoon is. But also all the IP space that that came out like at the bottom of this compile that you can see, but also that is tagged as coming out of the university is actually on ChinaNet backbone, which is kind of a big deal. Like it's kind of hard to get close to the backbone, and like that's where all the bandwidth is. It's like the super fast stuff, and so usually you've got to have a lot of like money or power to kind of get close to that. Also, the system is like very generic. Like there's not a lot of personal affect on the machine. and it seems to be geared more towards typical utility as opposed to being like hardcore developer or programmer or hacker person. So I suspect this is a university machine, and I don't know if it was being attacked and the person was building the payload on a victim, or if it was, being used as a launch vessel. I don't know. I'll never know. Okay, this was super funny. So the IP address, the public IP address of the compiling individual corresponds to Israel. It's a super, I wish I could make this screenshot bigger because it's a turducken of information. So it's an Amazon workspace, and the Amazon workspace, the person using the Amazon workspace is RDP'd into somewhere else where they are building the sample, and it's actively setting off AV. Well, something else is setting off AV, which we'll get to in a minute. That's not my thing that they're trying to build, which is hilarious. Also, they had like path errors, which is what's like, oh man, I wish I could zoom this in. All this PowerShell in here is them trying to do this crazy, like, they're trying to use the contextant audio driver, which is like this UIU A64 exe thing, as a back, like it had a bug in it, and you're trying to use the bug as the ability to replace the code inside the executable with something else. I don't know what the something else is. It might have been my thing, it might have been something else, to leverage its signature so that they could use it for, I don't know, I would assume bad or some kind of maybe pen test, maybe this is legit. But like that's what all this is. It's like there's PowerShell script that's doing like IEX cradles into like UIA64 that's then taking the contents and dropping it into these text files that are on a share someplace. It's like very convoluted, and some shenanigans are afoot. I don't know what. There's a folder on the desktop called Omicron, and the user is called OMERD. So this part is speculatory, but there's also a bunch of hacker stuff on this machine. It's got like Scarecrow and like a bunch of other, like, clearly somebody's like, this is what somebody does for like a living or something. But so there's I don't think this is a person, this OMERD. I think it's a company. There is a company that is an IT service company in Israel, where the IP address corresponds to, that is called this. It's not even an acronym. Like, this is the name of the company. And they work on third parties, and so having an Amazon workspace where you're RDPing into somebody else's stuff is a plausible scenario. And I couldn't find a whole lot of information on the internal domain, other than the fact that it's not SoftLayer. It's another big cloud, DigitalOcean. It's a DigitalOcean machine. But what's funny is that all the other stuff on the machine is like, PS exec and how to dump LSAS and, managing Microsoft environments and, my GitHub page where they got the source code and like service time and like clearly like Hackerman like time. And I went and looked at LinkedIn claims of people who had, like basically I looked at like employees of the IT service company and clients that they had listed on publicly available sources, and then went through all of the executives that were listed on the web pages. And there is a company who shall remain nameless because I have some level of creed. I'm not that bad, but you can go find it. Whose name is David Shaw. This is interesting because while this person is compiling the malware or my implant, they're on a Microsoft Teams call to a guy named David Shaw. It's like in the bottom right-hand corner. This is stupid, but this is my favorite one. This is my favorite little like, oh God, if only the camera was on and I would have gotten bro's actual face on the call. Crime. Anyway. Oh, there's some other like information about this being Israeli also. Like they've got international English as their keyboard. They have a ton of WhatsApp messages. Like it seems pretty clear this is like an operator in Israel someplace. This one is very clearly Portuguese. There's Portuguese here. The IP address comes out as somewhere in Portugal. I have no idea what the user means. This OPPX, like, I couldn't really find any references to it. It's clearly a nerd, whoever this is, because there's a ton of Python all over the desktop. It's, you know, VS Code and VMs, and there's all these little random meme images. Like, these are real hard to see, but if you blow this up and look at what's in these photos, these are like memes in Portuguese that are passed around on like Telegram and Discord communities where like shenanigans happen. So, you know, clearly somebody who's playing on both ends of the line. There's a VPN down here. It's like it's called HMA VPN, also popular for doing wacky stuff. Whoever this is also a major audiophile, or like a DJ, because there's some DJ software here. It's like Zulu DJ thing, and then there's and it's real hard to see, but this NCH suite down here, that's an audio editor that's used for sample editing, and then they've got like VS Code and Discord, and you know, so pretty sure it's a DJ who hacks on the side, or a hacker person who's getting into DJing, or I don't know what's going on there, but yeah. This is I should have explained this before. So all those slides that I have that are like 1, 2, and then 3, that's because they had 3 monitors attached. So I got screenshots from each of the monitors. So you can kind of tell what kind of drip they got going on. 3 screens, big time, bro. This one is, you're gonna have to trust me on. There's one other one's like this. So no, this isn't that one. This is the Japanese one. Never mind. So yeah, the IP address is Japanese. It's like this PC MAD. I don't know what PC MAD is, and there's not a lot of other information on the machine. What's funny about this one is that they tried again. I think it's either my last slide or my second to last slide. Is the same box. It's the same person, all the way down to where'd it go? The Windows NT profile ID is like the same. So they clearly like ran it, and then for some reason either did something naughty that got it submitted to VT or submitted it to VT themselves, and then couldn't tell if it worked or something, and then did it again later. I don't know. They did. All right, this one is also ChinaNet backbone. It's also clearly a red teamer because they've got Neo4j and Bloodhound and a bunch of other stuff installed. Interesting enough, they also have like Baidu's copy of GStreamer running, which means like I think they're like a Chinese streamer or something. I guess that's a thing. I don't know. I'm told that this kind of yellow and teal window back here, that this is like a very indicative China something. I don't know what it is. I've heard different things. I've heard it's a control panel. I've heard it's used for. I've heard it's like turn off like telemetry inside your machine when you're going to do nasty stuff in China. I've heard stuff, but I don't actually know what this is. I've just heard that it's significant. And then there's also a bunch of. It's like a very spidery system in terms of use case. They've got Android dev stuff on it. There's a bunch of NVIDIA stuff on it. There's a bunch of Java stuff on it. There's like an R tool chain in here somewhere. There's like 2 different Python build systems. I don't know. It's a very, yeah, somebody's going to town. They're doing thing, making waves. This is the other Japanese shell. So it's the same system. This is that PC MAD Japanese IP address. Yeah. All right. So show and tell's over. I did this for about a year. It was cool. And then finally, after troving VT for quite some time, somebody figured it out. But the way they figured it out is super hilarious. So this is a screenshot. It's still, you can go to my GitHub and go to Go Mimi Cats right now. And these comments are still there. And obviously they're all in Mandarin and I didn't know what they meant. So I had to have some trusted individuals translate them. And this is what they're saying. So they're like shadow dancer guy, which apparently is like it doesn't quite translate well from Mandarin to English, but it's like the equivalent of calling someone like a ninja or whatever, like a badass, I guess. Or like, this overlay technology static, no kill defender and 360, although I think the information collected is a bit too private, but this data not sent, basically they're saying, hey, this stuff like takes a bunch of information about your machine and like doesn't manage to, like it doesn't kill defender or security 360. The security 360 thing is actually kind of important because those Japanese screenshots I showed you earlier, security 360 has a lot of Chinese nationals operating in Japan doing research. That's all I'll say about that, because they're technically like a Western-friendly company. Anyway, but they're like, hey, it's doing all this stuff and it's getting all this data, and it looks like it's not sending it, it's just encrypting it. Like, oh, that seems a little invasive, but I guess it's cool. And then the guy responding is like, no, dum-dum, like someone's using this to do bad. This is for traceability. You're totally, like, you're silly. That's not what it's for. Anyway, so this was, okay, I guess I'm caught. And I have since, basically after this was posted, I issued an update to my own code base, removing the backdoor, doing an almost revert, removing all the shadiness, but I also, as a generalized gift to the community, remodified the cryptography again to be just different enough that it was evading Defender and all of the typical antivirus systems again. I'll be honest, I haven't checked this in like 3-4 years. Like, it still works, I can tell you that, because I've got old copies of the binary that I detonate sometimes in Docker just to make sure that they still work, so I know it'll work. But I don't know if I don't know how well it still works. If you want to go use this, like, yeah, I've kind of moved off of this technology onto I have other stuff that does this now, so this itself is not modernized, and the Go is probably old, but and feel free to mess with it, it's still there. But yeah, it's all defanged now. Yeah, well, normally I was going to leave 10 to 15 minutes for questions, except I'm not there to answer them. So, sorry. Hopefully you've had fun in this little romp through screenshots and ridiculousness. I will, I do have my own Zoom bridge, my personal one, and I will be immediately following the conclusion of this presentation, giving that to my wonderful Shmoo handlers. And they're going to make an announcement at some point that is going to say when that bridge will be active, and I'll sit there and answer questions and respond till all of your heart's content, and we can talk about sillies, sending things to VirusTotal. That's funny. Yeah, I guess thanks for listening to my ridiculousness. I'm real sad to not be there. Real sad. Kind of breaks my heart, but my kids are safe, my family's safe. I have a house that has power, internet, water, and a lot of people in my neighborhood don't have that right now. So I'm grateful for Shmoo making this happen and for accommodating me, and really happy. Thanks, guys.